I first read The Omnivore's Dilemma in a high school environmental science class. And that really changed the way that I thought about food and food production and kind of what we're putting in our bodies and the assumptions that we had about what's healthy and what's not and so forth. So my question to you is, seeing this arc of your work about things that we put in our bodies, whether it's food or medicine or something in between on that spectrum, how did you get into writing about psychedelics? What drew you to this beat?
Yeah, it wasn't a plan. It was really kind of serendipity. It was learning about some of the research going on at Johns Hopkins, specifically at NYU, reading about it, and also getting this sense that this is back in 2014, that psychedelics were having a moment, or were about to. I described being at a dinner party I think it was in 2013, and in Berkeley, and hearing, like, way down at the end of the table, some woman who was like, appeared to be in her 60s, talking about a very recent acid trip. And I thought, well, that's curious. And she was a very prominent member of the faculty. And she was talking about what she was, what it was teaching her about psychology. And then hearing about some of the research that, I'd always been interested in plant medicines. And I had, in fact, in Botany of Desire, there's a chapter on cannabis. And my larger interest around plants is really about how they change us and how we change them. And there's, food is one of the most important things we use plants for, but changing consciousness is another. And it's much more curious and hard to explain. And much more interesting. So this was always in the back of my head. Someday I wanted to write a book about using, plants and fungi to change consciousness. But then I heard that this research was going on, and I thought this was the moment. So I pitched a story to the New Yorker, which became the Trip Treatment, which really is what got me excited enough to do the book. There's this phenomenon when you do an article, one of two things happens. You're either sick of the topic and happy to be done with it when you're done, and never want to see it again, or you feel, I've just scratched the surface. There's so much here, and that's what happened with psychedelics. I realized just what a rich topic it was, and how new it was to me, because I had very little experience aside from a couple, museum doses of mushrooms in my 20s. I had never really tripped. And so I was curious about that too. And it was a little bit of a midlife crisis thing too, I think. There's a point in your life sometimes when you really want to throw everything up in the air. And I think I was at that point. And I'd written about food. I'd written 4 books on food, and had become enough of an expert that it wasn't fun writing about. I don't like writing about topics I'm expert on. It's fine for op-ed pieces and speeches, but it's the learning process that I enjoy dramatizing in my writing. So I'd much rather be at the beginning of the learning curve than, at the peak or the end. That's what kind of opened it up to me. But yeah, there were continuities too. Yes, there's the plant continuity, but there's also, as you suggested, I'm very interested in what we put in our bodies. I'm very interested in health. A couple of my books on food were very much about bodily health and health in general. So that was another attraction to me, was that, the idea that these supposedly dangerous substances that I've been taught as a teenager to fear might actually be treatments was kind of mind-blowing.
It reminds me, I remember when the Trip Treatment came out in the New Yorker, I think that was at around 2015 or so.
Yeah, February 2015, I think.
Yeah, and I was working at the Village Voice as a cannabis reporter, and I was working on a cover story there about psychedelics. And then your story came out, and at the same time, the editor there, who had since left the paper, told me that my drug reporting was too cliche for the Village Voice, and it was passé to be writing about cannabis and psychedelics, even though I saw cannabis as sort of this gateway crop into writing about other plant medicines. And so I felt super validated when the New Yorker.
I hope he apologized.
He no longer works at the paper. So, but yeah, it was really like a moment in journalism when, you know, I think the cannabis beat was starting to become a lot more legitimate, and the psychedelic beat was just becoming a thing.